I'll give a little bit of background perhaps that will help answer both of them, and then hand over to some of the rest of you. So Tuisina, thank you so much for your question. And your question, I think, comes down to, you know, what are human rights, and how valued are they, and how do they change culturally? And in some Pacific cultures, the aiga, the village, the family units, you know, they're the building blocks of society, and the individual is not elevated in quite the same way as in some other cultures. I think I'm summarising your question, and do feel free to add to it if there's something that I've misunderstood. So are we accounting for that in our data collection is the main question. Oh, I guess I've summarised our Tuisina says. Excellent, thank you. This is great interaction. So I guess the first couple of things I'd say just as background before we come to a specific addressing of your question. One is that I guess our goal in HRMI is to eventually measure all rights that are in international law. So we are trying to take an approach that takes what all countries have in common, knowing that there will be nuances in every country and culture where some things are more and less important or are expressed really differently. So we're trying to take a view of what countries have actually signed up to, what they've made promises about in most cases, with United Nations, you know, covenants and conventions, and we're drawing from those. And then the second thing I'd add is that all of our measurement tools and the way that we do everything are based in co-design, where we gather people together who are stakeholders and ask them what they want and how it should be done. So we at no point start by saying, here we are experts and we're going to tell you what you need and what we will do. We instead have 4 times over the last 5 years gathered people, you know, flown them internationally to gather together for a few days, practitioners from around the world, people working for, you know, Amnesty and Human Rights Watch and other NGOs, academics, people who are experts in particular aspects of human rights, people who work for the United Nations and for governments, get them all in a room for a few days and find out what will be most useful. And our most recent one of these was a co-design workshop specifically focused on the Pacific region. So this time last year, in August in Auckland, we had 43 people from around the Pacific who just volunteered and said they were interested and wanted to devote that time and travel and energy to come and gather together to talk about what's important to the Pacific. So we made some adjustments to the overall international survey based on that workshop. And then also, because some strong feedback that came through the workshop was that there were particular human rights concerns for people in Pacific countries that were outside what we were currently measuring. We added on an entirely new extra Pacific module that went out just as a test run to start with last year. It went out, bolted on to the main survey. And so if you were a survey respondent in Samoa or Tuvalu or Kiribati, when you said that that was your country, you would get some extra questions. And the people at the workshop, the 43 participants, we came up with hundreds of different things that were important issues in the Pacific, and then voted together, well, not just voted, but discussed and voted, and came up with 5 themes that people particularly wanted more information on, that they wanted us to conduct research on. And those 5 themes are discussed in the Pacific report. So if you go to that link that's in the chat box and download it from our website, then you'll see what data we've been able to collect. The issues that people wanted us to explore were how the climate crisis affects human rights, Indigenous self-determination, and that I think might answer your question, Nick McClellan, about self-determination, cultural rights and Indigenous land rights, and the last one was, everybody? Violence, sorry. The last one was violence.
Yeah.
Against 4 particular groups. So violence in the community against women and girls, against LGBTQIA plus people, against, and there's the graphs for the violence results that we have, against people with disabilities and against children. So again, these were co-designed, crowdsourced. These were the things that people told us they were interested in, and so we have started to measure them. Now, we want to, as we said right at the beginning, we want to be of service, we want to be useful. That is why we exist. We also acknowledge that the 4 of us you see here particularly don't have expertise in the Pacific, and we want people who do have expertise in the Pacific and who are from the Pacific to drive this kind of work that is for the Pacific. And so we've been really delighted that two academics with Pacific roots, Sam Manuela and Patrick Thompson, have joined the HRMI team as our Pacific data leads, and they are now taking over to work on this Pacific module. These, at the moment, 5 questions, and maybe they'll be more or different in the future. And so they're going to be available to lead the work in the future to serve people in the Pacific and make sure that the things that people in the Pacific care about are being measured.